Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fensky. What if you saw someone screaming at their child in the grocery store? What would you do? Would you intervene and possibly make the situation worse? Would you do nothing while a child sobs? Would your answer change even if the parent slapped the kid? Now, that scenario might make you think of that show on ABC. It's called Yes, What Would You Do? And host John Quinones will pop out telling people they're actually on hidden camera and that the angry parent and the crying child are both actors. But in real life, it's not so simple. These are dilemmas that can have big consequences. And they're the subject of a new program at St. Louis University. Its Support Over Silence for Kids is designed to help bystanders step in to stop child maltreatment without making a bad situation worse. And joining me in studio to talk about it is Nancy Weaver. She's a professor of behavioral science and health education at St. Louis University. She's also an associate dean of academic and faculty affairs in the university's College for Public Health and Social Justice. So Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So we've all been in these situations where we just don't know what to do, and I know that includes you. And I'm told that in one of these situations, you chose to intervene. So set the scene for us. Where were you?
It was a pizza parlor. It was one of those Friday night all-you-can-eat buffets. I was there with my family. There were bright fluorescent lights, lots of chaos and noise, lots of excitement for the weekend, generally exuberant kind of festive environment. And then out of this kind of freneticism, we heard a grandmother start really speaking very harshly to her children. The crowd kind of looked over and we noticed she's pushing, she's shoving, she's really interacting with them in ways that kind of made all of us uncomfortable. And yet the crowd just kind of hushed and stared. And I'm in this room as well. I'm not a trained professional. I'm not a social worker. I don't have any experience in these kinds of things. But I decided I just felt compelled to do something. So I got up, I went over to their table, and I sat down.
You sat down, and then did you start talking? I mean, they must have just been staring at you like, what are you doing at our table?
Exactly. And it was kind of a moment where I thought, well, it's either gonna work well or it's gonna crash. And at the time, the grandmother just really softened. I just sat and I said, it looks like you guys are really struggling. And she told me all about the trials of her life that day. She was watching the grandkids. The mom was supposed to get off work, wasn't able to. The car was in the shop. They hadn't eaten all day. And it was a tense moment. And
that diffused it.
It did. We had a kind of a nice conversation. So I went back to my table then with my family, who were wondering what in the world had I just done. And the manager came over and said, thanks. None of us knew what to do. And we really appreciated that somebody kind of helped to dial back what was a tense moment.
And so now for the last couple of years, you've been part of this initiative that's using situations like that. How did that experience and how that all played out end up informing the Support Over Silence for Kids initiative?
Well, I came back from my pizza parlor incident, and I started asking my colleagues, did I do the right thing? And most of the people I asked couldn't give me an answer. And I realized that science hadn't yet caught up with us, and that as a behavioral scientist, someone who's interested in parenting, this was something that I had an interest in. And I really wanted to know how we create communities of people that can be supportive in ways that are not judgmental, in ways that aren't harsh or hostile, and in ways that really helped businesses, communities, organizations be places where parents aren't afraid to bring their children.
Now, I know that in the name of this organization, the Support Over Silence for Kids, KIDS is actually an acronym. So walk us through what those 4 letters stand for and how that kind of plays out in terms of what you're trying to do here.
Right. we wanted the name to really evoke the intention of the program, which is we wanted bystanders in the community to not be silent and instead offer support. And the acronym is some guidance on how to do that. It does take a bit of time to practice and prepare and think about that. Take a deep breath, really reflect on your own situation and how you were parented maybe. But the KIDS acronym lays that out. So K, keep to yourself or offer kind words.
So don't come in with judgment.
Right. There are times where, myself included, I've had challenging moments with my children in public. And so if a mom were to see me and say, "Great job, can I, give you some props for this negotiating you're doing?" That's some solidarity there, and that's nice to hear. Mm-hmm. The I is being very direct in your intervention, intervening directly. And those are kind of like what I did at the pizza parlor. You're struggling. Can I help? Can I carry your diaper bag? Would you like me to hold your child? Is there somebody I can call for you? Something that kind of addresses the situation very up front.
Rather than sitting there and whispering with your friends and not doing anything to the people that are in trouble. Right.
The D is for distraction, which I'm kind of a silly person. So distracting is commenting on the children's shoes or engaging them in a conversation. Hey, which cereal should I get? Or if the granola bars are on sale. Or even just singing a song or dropping your keys or something that takes the energy out of a really acute moment. And then the S, there are times where seeking help is the best thing to do. So I might have a certain barrier that won't, where I feel a little uncomfortable or not have the training or might not be in the right space to do that. It might have escalated to a place where bringing in, a manager or professionals is the best choice. So that sort of rounds out the KIDS acronym.
Okay, so keep to yourself or share kind words, intervene directly, distract, or seek help.
You got it.
I'm wondering, what if, it's not just this tense situation, it's a situation where you're suspecting actual child abuse. Is that something where that would take you right to the seek help?
Yeah, Part of the program and the training is really helping community members notice events. We walk around in the world not noticing as much as we used to notice, and so even just being aware of what's happening is a great first step. And of course, if you're aware, you realize that it's escalated. If you're a mandatory reporter, if you're in an environment, a hospital or some other places, there are often ways that you alert the people who can kind of take a bigger step in that regard.
Now, I'm a parent with young kids, and I know that when I get together with my mom friends, we talk about the fact that everybody is always judging us, no matter where you go in public.
Right.
Someone thinks you're doing it wrong, and half the time they want to share that with you, tell you what you're doing wrong. So I can see somebody maybe listening to this conversation we're having and thinking, oh, great, just what I need. More unsolicited parenting advice. What would you say to people who kind of feel that way?
It's a really excellent point. Parenting is a private thing, and certainly we become parents based somewhat on how we were parented, our culture, our families. And so this program isn't intended to tell people how to parent. And so as long as we're training our communities and our bystanders to be open and supportive and not hostile and judgmental, then we're finding that people are very open to that kind of participation. An example I've used lately is that we train people to do CPR, for instance, right? And yet, if we were called to do that, that's not the time to, give a lecture on exercise and fruits and vegetables. That's an acute moment that needs some really supportive intervention, much like really stressful times that might happen out in public with your kids.
Have you ever tried to gently intervene using these techniques and found it just didn't go so well?
Yes, I had
so
an experience. Well, We can't expect any of these things to necessarily be foolproof. I mean, this is really, parenting takes place in these crazy environments and contexts, and it's unpredictable and beautiful all at once. But I was in an airport one time, and this was after we had launched the beginning of this program, and I noticed a mom and her child struggling, and the child was talking about being hungry. So I went to the snack bar, and I purchased a Cliff Bar, granola bar, something, and I went back to where they had been sitting, and they weren't there. And I paced around kind of looking for them, hoping that I could reconnect with them in some way. So we're not going to be able to help in all situations, nor should we. As long as we're noticing and we're available if a need arises.
So I know that you've been offering this training to some professionals and to some groups. Can just anybody sign up for this if they hear you talking about it and they think, yeah, I actually do want to know more about this? Sure.
We have a website, supportoversilenceforkids.org. We are offering trainings to community groups and partners. Certainly there are times where being out in public with your kid is more challenging than others, as we all know. And so it's times like those and places like those, businesses or other community groups that we're finding are really benefiting from this kind of training.
But just anybody, if they go to that website, they would be eligible to participate?
Yeah, we have scheduled community trainings, and if we have enough interest, we look for a date and time that works for the people who are involved and have been launching or planning to launch those throughout the spring.
Okay, well, Nancy Weaver of St. Louis University, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, thank you for having me.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.